if you could go back to your first year and like back in like 1935, what? So it feels weird like carrying a backpack and walking on campus.
Did you have your little lunchbox? All right, Jake. So we're doing it. This is it, the first classroom to clinic podcast.
We've been talking about this for a long time, so definitely both a little nervous and realize we're not good at technology already.
That's fair. All right, well, I guess let's just jump into it, huh? How about some intros?
Yeah, I'll go first. So I'll give my background. So I always thought I was going to start off doing physical therapy. So in undergrad, I started taking courses to apply to physical therapy school when I got done. About a year before I graduated, I decided that I did not want to do physical therapy, mainly because I had to take physics and biology. So I kind of dropped those courses, went ahead, finished the exercise science degree. I started working one-on-one as a personal trainer at a recreation center. Really enjoyed it. Decided to get my CSCS after graduating and then also go do the masters. So knocked out the masters, ended up started working with Brad. Went over, I was young, didn't know much of what I was doing, and then decided to eventually apply to PT school and try to get in.
All right, that's pretty cool. I didn't know all that stuff. I didn't know it was physics. Physics is one of those courses that seems like it gets a lot of people. I actually really liked physics. Maybe I was the nerd but I did take it at a junior college, so maybe that's what it was. They were a little bit more low key about everything. All right, well, so how I got in there? Do you want a funny story, Jake, or do you want like just a normal story?
Let's go with the funny. I want to hear funny.
The funny story. Okay, so the funny story. When I was growing up, I grew up on a farm, and we had all the farm animals. We had goats and cows, a couple donkeys, pigs, and everything like that. Well, what really got me started, we had this little goat, and he was born as the runt, so we ended up having to bottle feed him. So we really got to like him. Well, he broke his leg, and usually if they break their legs, they just kind of, get rid of them. But it was like, no, this is our boy. We bottle fed him, so we want to cast his leg and everything. And so he's walking around with a cast on one foot for a while. The bone heals. Eventually the cast comes off, but just like everything else that's been in a cast, he had to learn how to walk again. So as a little kid, my mom and me and my brother, we were out there holding him up, trying to get him to walk and use that leg again. And as weird as that story may be, that kind of started my interest in rehab. It's like, man, this is kind of fun. This is kind of cool to see somebody, even if it's a goat, see
Yeah.
somebody kind of go from limping around to, man, now he's back jumping off of tree branches and all this kind of stuff. And so that kind of piqued my interest in the rehab world. And now, of course, I continued to grow up and played sports and things like that. And so I was like, you know what? I don't know about PT, but maybe athletic training's the way to go. So I started down that route of athletic training, went to University of Southern Mississippi, did all that jazz. And then while I was down there, I realized athletic trainers work a lot of hours and get paid very little money to do it. And so I was like, ooh, maybe PT might be the better option. Plus, I did kind of like the clinic a little bit more than on the field all the time. So did that, graduated from Southern Miss, got my athletic training certification, sat for my CSCS at that time as well, and then went to PT school, and then, of course, did that, and that's great. That was what, I guess, going on 16 years ago now, and I'm getting old. So, yeah, about 16 years ago now, I guess. And so I've had the pleasure of working in private practice. I started off in private practice, did that for a little while, then I moved over into a physician-owned clinic, did that for a little while. Now I'm at a human performance facility doing physical therapy and strength and conditioning, and that's where I met Jake. How many years
I
ago
knew
was
you
that
were,
now?
so a year and a half.
Oh,
August
year and a
was a
half.
year and a half. So
Felt a
time is flying.
lot longer than that.
Yeah. But I knew you were from a small little town, but that may have been the most country thing you've ever said with the goat story.
It's pretty bad. So we got some pretty good stories. I'll tell you some pig stories. We had a pig named Java,
Uh,
so I got some good. Java stories that I'm sure we can get to down the road.
Yeah, so basically, me and Brad ended up working together. Once I told him I was thinking about physical therapy school, we kind of took like a mentorship role, started shadowing him after hours, and then that's kind of how the pod came about. But the fact that we're actually doing it now is kind of crazy because we've talked about so many ideas, and now we're actually putting ourselves out there like that. But I think the biggest idea with the pod was just having, especially as I go through physical therapy school, and Brad's been in the clinic for what, 16 years now. So having the perspective of a student going through physical therapy school could really relate to students that are also going through physical therapy school. Hearing a clinician who's already been through school and have a real world experience in the clinic, I think that could provide insight on all the knowledge you gain in PT school and actually trying to apply it when you get out of the clinic so you don't feel lost. And then even students get helped, and also like new grads or even seasoned clinicians who are trying to just further their knowledge or maybe reminisce on their school days a little bit too.
Yeah, yeah, I'll definitely thinking back at my early days as a clinician, there is definitely a big bridge that you got to get over from, hey, I graduated, I got my doctorate in physical therapy, I'm licensed now, I should know what I'm doing. Well, honestly, it was probably about 3 years before I really felt like I was a legitimate clinician. It's a big jump. You're like, oh man, the real world's a little different, and there's a huge learning curve. So, yeah, that's what I'm hoping that this podcast maybe will help bridge that gap a little bit and make it a smoother transition for everybody.
Yeah. So I guess we kind of talk about, I mean, I got a lot of questions. I start classes on Monday, just got done with orientation. So
Oh man,
maybe
how was the orientation?
orientation was fun. It kind of helped out to like, instead of going straight to classes, you kind of get to meet everyone. I mean, I didn't know, I knew like of one person, but literally besides one person, I did not know anyone out of 64 people. So it's kind of good to get like an intro and have a week of hanging out with people, kind of get comfortable before you start going to classes and stuff. Definitely a switch from working, because I've been working for the past 3 years, like full time, and now I'm back in school. So it feels weird, like carrying a backpack and walking on campus.
Did you
But
have your little lunchbox? You got your little brown bag
no, no
lunchbox?
lunchbox yet. They kind of spoiled us this
Man.
week. They gave us a bunch of free lunches, so I haven't put out the lunchbox yet.
Yeah, yeah. No, they're rolling out the red carpet for you the first week, and then it's gonna be drop the hammer. It's like, no, you're on your own. Eat peanut butter and
Yeah.
jelly again. Yeah. Did y'all play games or anything like that? Those like cheesy team building games.
No, no games. It was more so just like getting all the student ID badges and parking passes and tours and kind of expectations of courses and stuff like that. It was very informative. I think everyone's just excited to get started with classes, of course. And it's kind of nerve-wracking too. I know some students that have already like been through it or are in it right now, just kind of want to get started to see how hard it is that everyone talks about, and then
Yeah,
just so I can get the ball rolling and get in the groove.
yeah, definitely.
What do you
I mean,
remember from?
I remember that was a long time ago. I have to pull it out of the deep in the memory box. I do remember feeling like, let's get this going. Like I really don't like the beginning part of much of anything, whether it be school or even a job. Like when I've switched jobs, it's like, can we just fast forward into like maybe a month into this thing, so we know what's going on? Because you build it all up in your head, and it's crazy. I know when I was going through. There was a show, Grey's Anatomy. Do you know Grey's Anatomy? It's a
My mom
TV
and
show.
all the
You're
women
you're
around
gonna
me.
do me like that? You're gonna say my mom knows it? You're gonna That's
If
jacked
you
up.
like Grey's
Okay.
Anatomy, I want to, but
Anyway, so there's a Grey's Anatomy book. You probably have to have that textbook. We had the actual Grey's Anatomy textbook as one of our textbooks. Well, they made a show about it. Anyway, blah blah blah. So the show was all about like med students going into like their internship and stuff like that. So I'm watching this show, and that's what I'm thinking PT school is going to be like. It's just like high pressure. What do you mean you don't know this? Blah, blah, like all that. And of course, it's not like that at all. I mean, it's kind of like, yo, we're in PT school. Like everybody take a breath. But I do remember, man, being super nervous. I did have one friend, thank goodness. He actually went to Southern Miss with me, so it was the two of us, and so we just stuck together like two scared little puppies or whatever,
yeah,
and we just went everywhere together for the first 6 weeks, and then everything was fine.
Yeah. Once you got rolling, you felt pretty much in the groove.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's kind of a grind, not to like be a Debbie Downer on you, sorry, but it's a 3-year program, so it's just like, let's go. I was coming out, I was ready to work. I'm sure all you guys are, especially you, Jake, you've been working. So like you said, going back into this weird school mindset mode is like, man, let's go. Like we're ready to get into it. I mean, you're ready to be a PT. I mean, most of the people when they go to become a physical therapist, they're doing that because they want to work with people. Right? They want to help people, they want to interact. And so it's like, all right, for the next 3 years, we're going to stick you in a classroom and you sit in your seat, you look forward and you just get flooded with information. So it's kind of, I guess we all kind of have like a little bit of ADD in us. We like to be moving around and stuff. So you're kind of going into the grind mode, I guess.
If you could go back to your first year and like back in like 1935, what would you
Yeah,
do
yeah,
different?
yeah. Well, I would use electricity instead of the candles. Now, well, see, one of the biggest things that I think I probably had a problem with was like I'm not, believe it or not really a people person. And so I didn't really understand the importance of really getting to know all my classmates. Like I had my one little friend and eventually I got a couple other ones, but I didn't really understand the concept of like professional networking. I guess networking is kind of like a bigger thing nowadays, but back then it was a thing, but I don't know. I was just not quite aware of it as probably I should have been. So I just kind of isolated myself and plus most people live downtown or I was living kind of out in the suburbs a little bit. And so they were hanging out a little bit more. And when I went home, I just went home. So if I were to kind of the especially that first semester, kind of go back and be like, hey, out the gate, you don't really know anything. They haven't taught you anything yet. And so it's like, hey, well, what could I be doing this first semester that would actually improve me as a clinician? I would say take time to really get to know my classmates better than I did before. Because, they're all going to be clinicians eventually. And it's funny that, like, I've actually come back around years later and have worked with some of my classmates that I'm like, I said 3 words to you in PT school, and now all of a sudden it's like, hey, we're coworkers like that. It's kind of cool. So I would say, like really try to spend some time, quote unquote, networking. How do you feel about that, Jake? I think Jake, you're a little bit more of a extrovert. I would classify myself as an introvert maybe, and that's probably why I wasn't good at it. But you seem more like an extrovert to me. So what do you think? Do you find it easy to interact with all these new people or what?
Yeah, I think I'm definitely extroverted when I like am in a comfortable situation. So I probably haven't been as extroverted like the orientation week, especially since I knew like one dude. We kind of just been hanging out. We went out last night with everyone, so that kind of broke the ice a little bit and stuff. I think when I started working, especially like especially because I did work one on one for a long time, it kind of made me have to talk to people and got me out of my shell. So now I feel pretty comfortable talking to people. I feel like I've not mastered the small talk, but I've at least could hold a conversation and make it not awkward as possible. But yeah, when you do think about it, I mean, we have 64 people in our class, and that's 64 missions that you're going to be with for 3 years every day, basically 8 to 5. So there are a lot of opportunities. I feel like too, the way they like set it up well, where it's like we're doing like like I think the first PowerPoint we're doing in their Clin 1 procedures is like massage. So you get real comfortable real fast.
Yeah, so get naked in front of each other, like hey, everybody take your shirt off. It's time to rub on each other. Yeah, they did that. They did that to us too. Yeah, it's a kind of a neat trick.
I mean, I'm excited definitely to get to meet new people, but I've definitely been in my shell a little bit on the first weekend.
So you said you got 64 people in your class. How many people, because that's just your class, and then you got the class above you, and then eventually, next year you have the class below you. I mean, if you're, say, averaging 60 people a class, it's a 3-year program, 60 times 3, what's that, 180?
Yeah,
Like you're
it's a
saying,
lot of
that's a
people.
lot of people. I mean, 180 clinicians that really, again, we fast forward 3 years from now, yeah, there's a lot of them will probably stick around here or whatever, but there's going to be some that go all over. I mean, I remember some of my classmates doing the travel and PT thing and getting some really cool experiences and things like that. that you can use as a reference. I had one friend, he did the traveling PT thing and got to work in a like a clinic that specializes in amputations. And so how many times you see an amputation? Like if you're in a normal orthopedic clinic, I've seen like two or three really in my career. And so the first one that comes up, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't remember. I'm like, I don't know what to do. So, give him a call and be like, hey man, give me a rundown for real. Like, what am I supposed to do? Because he was a great help to just kind of get me to relax a little bit. Of course, he's like most things in PT. He's like, dude, it's not as hard as they make it out to be. And so just kind of taught me off the ledge. But man, I mean, you spend that out 180 clinicians. How many professors do y'all have?
Ooh, you put me on the spot. I think we have 9, but I know they want to get some more too. So I was gonna say too, even like from a professor standpoint, like even just because they've been in the field, they've been teaching most of them for a long time, or at least 5 years. So trying to like build relationships with them as more mentors as I go through the program. And I do have a friend that just started his 3rd year, and he's like raved on all the professors and how great they are and accommodating to help you learn and be the best clinician possible. So I'm excited to like have a support team, especially with just like I did my master's online, so it was a little different, or a lot different. Just I was working full time, so it's like I didn't get to connect with the professors and kind of build relationships. So I'm excited to be in person too and be hands on every day.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'll say this, kind of on the topic of like networking, and then we can bounce this back and forth and see if we can brainstorm some stuff together. Because I'll be honest with you, even now, like when somebody says networking, I'm kind of like, what? I don't even really understand kind of what that means. It seems like this kind of concept of that you need to know exactly, hey, A, B, C, D. Like, I don't really even know what that means. So let's, if you're cool with it, Jake, I kind of would like to throw it at you and see when we're saying networking, what's that even look like? Maybe you can help me too, because like I said, I'm naturally not a super people person. So this is an area that I struggle with too. Is when we say networking, what we're trying to say is basically get to know people, right?
I like, from my perspective, I'm big on relationships, so I always try to like build a relationship first. I'm kind of goofy too, so usually like I feel like I can get close with people pretty fast. Talking about like juicy pumps and bringing all the
Oh my
slang to
gosh,
our work together. But
Juicy
I
Jake.
think I think I could like get comfortable with people pretty fast just from being goofy and stuff. So I think like once I feel comfortable and then like I already have a relationship with them, then it's like it's not necessarily like a business need. It's more so like just that's my guy and we just kind of help each other out if needed. Like I think of all the like performance coaches at the job we had, and like it just felt like I was hanging with my like guy friends every day, and if we need like professional help, just since we already have that relationship, it just makes it so much easier instead of like transactional, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, because it does. It can get kind of weird, like really quick. It's like, hey, how are you? What do you do? Let me write this down and put you in my little black book so that we can talk later if I ever need help. Like you said, we definitely don't want that kind of vibe. I got a buddy of mine. His name is Bob Williamson. Bob Williamson, he does like leadership consulting and executive coaching and stuff. And he's really, of course, all about networking and stuff. And I was actually talking to him not that long ago about this exact thing. And he said something really interesting that kind of caught my attention. And he's like, hey, when we're talking to people, especially if it's somebody new, he's like, we want to ask 3 discovery-based questions before we jump into myself, or maybe even before I try to give them an answer or whatever. So 3 discovery-based questions. And I was like, man, that's actually really, really smart and kind of really simple because what we'll do if we're not careful is we just default into talking about ourselves, you know? And like you're saying, Jake, if we're trying to form some kind of a relationship, like we do that by making the other person think that we're really interested in them, right? Like we don't want to just be like, hey, look at me, da 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 da. It's like that person is going to kind of move on in life. But if we want to really form that connection, I really, really liked what he said. Hey, 3 discovery-based questions before we start rambling on about how, we grew up with goats or whatever. And then it kind of got me thinking too, kind of in light of this podcast, meaning, hey, we're trying to go from the classroom to the clinic. How can we improve our clinical skills with normal everyday stuff? Right? So obviously when you're in physical therapy school, You're getting all the information, all the anatomy, physiology, all the special tests. You're getting all that stuff. So yes, that makes sense to how we can apply that to the clinic. But in this conversation of, hey, we're in our first semester, what skill are we trying to build? What if we used our networking skills, like you're talking about? Hey, we're just taking this first semester to really get to know everybody and build these networking skills. What does that look like when we move over into the clinic? And it got me thinking of these three discovery-based questions. I was like, dude, that's the history that we take with our patients.
Even too, like from a classmate perspective or like coworkers, with some that I learned, especially working at our past job. I guess you're still there, but my like past PRN job is like you, especially doing like strength and conditioning, you really have no idea like who is coming. I guess in this sense, now that we're PT, who is on your table. So like you see so many patients in a day, and even networking with them when you're on rotations or whoever you're under for rotations, there's just like you can always network and just build relationships to, I hate to say like benefit yourself because you don't want it to be transactional, but just like get close with people if you guys like vibe together, and then you have so many resources that just help you as you go through your clinic experience.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. And it is kind of to help yourself though, because like you said, when you're with a patient, you want to build a relationship first and foremost of trust. Like they're not going to do anything you ask if they don't trust you, right? And basically you're trying to sell them your version of Kool-Aid. And so you need to get to know them and really understand where they're coming from. Because certain people just, if you got somebody who's like really, really sensitive, like I can't push them that hard. As a clinician, I need to know, hey, can I push you or do I need to like kit gloves? You got to feel that out. And like you're saying, that's really where these three discovery-based questions kind of come from. We can have the injury aspect. So I'm gonna have three questions that pertain to like, why are you here? When did you hurt yourself, and is it getting better? Like, okay, that gives me a lot of ideas and a lot of information as far as your injury is concerned. But that's just honestly one little bitty part of kind of who they are and the relationship that we're trying to build. That's almost that's the easy stuff. It's like, okay, we do our job and they're going to get better, but we really want to try to form that connection. So then it's like, okay, now I need these other three almost more networking discovery-based questions. Some silly stuff, like you're talking about. You're really good because you are goofy, so you could pull out a random like, hey, what is your favorite memory from when you were a kid or whatever, and then that gets them talking about themselves, and that's those networking skills that, again, going back to the original question, that I wish when I was a young student and then a young PT, I even did this, the first, like I said, 2 or 3 years of my career, I was not super good at this. So it was very transactional. It was almost kind of cold. It's like, I'm here to get you better and that's it. And it wasn't until it's like, okay, chill out, there's more going on here, that I start actually asking these more personal questions. And of course, as soon as we do that, now all of a sudden the relationship of the clinician to the patient improves and my outcomes get better too.
Yeah, so I'll definitely keep that in mind as we go through the first year and stuff. I think my like having the working experience would definitely help because I guess strength and conditioning is kind of similar with the one-on-one and being in group setting. What about like study tips? Because I'm gonna be in class next week. You got any study tips? Kind of what you did in school?
Yeah.
Because you did pass the NPTE, so you are licensed.
Man, I did. By the skin of my teeth, I passed. So go sweeping declaration on the front end. No matter what happens, you're going to leave your board exam. Guarantee you're like, I know I failed. Because everybody felt like that. I did the same thing. I left and I'm like, there's no way. I'm thinking in my head, like, where am I going to get the money to retake this test? That's really what I felt like. So just know that that's coming. No matter how hard you study, everybody feels certain that they failed. And the vast majority of people end up passing. So just kind of have that on the back burner. But I will say, I'll be honest with you, like coming through undergrad and stuff, I didn't really study a ton. It just kind of worked out. And so I got to PT school and it's like, ooh, okay, I actually do need to study all of a sudden. Like I didn't really have great study habits at that time. So I had to create some. And so for me, I don't do a good job of of taking in a lot of information at one time. I like to take little micro doses, and that's kind of the way I am with everything. Honestly, you could look at the way I work out. I kind of work out in little micro doses or whatever. Even in physical therapy, when I work with my patients, we have like little micro doses of things, and I'm sure we can talk about all that stuff down the road. But I would say my recommendation is just building in that habit that we're going to do some kind of studying every day. This first semester, maybe not, because I don't think it's super duper hard, but definitely as you go into like the middle, that second semester and that second year is where it's like, man, we're really getting into the meat and potatoes of it, where you got to stay on top of it. You stay on top of it a little bit every day. Once I established that pattern to where I was studying 15 to 30 minutes every single day, I just come home, shake it out, get a little workout in or whatever, eat dinner, and I'm like, all right, for the next 15, 30 minutes, I'm just going to go back there and I'm going to review basically what we talked about while it's fresh on my mind and do a little bit kind of like quiz yourself or whatever. And what I found was while everybody else was kind of like really having to study the night before the test, they were like, hey, we're going to cram. They're like, man, I was up till 2 a.m., all this stuff. I never did that. Maybe I should have. Like I will admit they made A's where I made probably B's and C's. But again, we're in PT school now, so your GPA kind of doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
And so
as
I
long
was
as you
like, hey, I
finish.
just gotta. That's right. C
Yeah.
stands for continue, is what they say. So I was like, hey, look, I'm just gonna know the stuff. And so yeah, night before the test, I would study maybe 1 or 2 hours just to really get it, and then move on with life. And then what I found was really beneficial. Again, talking about moving from the classroom to the clinic, is when I got into the clinic, you got all the paperwork crap that you have to do. I mean, it's just exhausting. If I could change one thing about physical therapy, about medicine, is the paperwork is a nightmare. And so, you're seeing, I don't know, it depends on where you end up working, but say you're seeing anywhere from probably 10 to 15 patients a day. You don't want to get to the end of your day and be like, man, I got 15 notes I got to do. Man, that's going to take me an hour or whatever. Building in throughout the day, like these little microdoses, man, I can knock out 1 or 2 notes right here and just kind of like, hey, get somebody doing an exercise or something like that. And just like you're studying your anatomy or whatever a little bit every day. It's like, man, I'm going to knock out these notes a little bit each, every couple hours. I'm going to knock a couple out, and then you get done to the end of your day. It's like, man, I only got 2 or 3 notes. I can not bang those out real quick and get home.
Yeah, I think I'll definitely take that with me. I think just getting the habit early, even if it's like Monday comes and I know we're doing syllabuses and all that stuff, but I do think we'll get into it. Just go ahead and start step reviewing what we had on the day because we did take a little, I don't know what to call it. I guess like a personality test, but for study habits. And I'm looking like a procrastinator, so we have to check that and make sure that doesn't happen. But the school does have a lot of good resources too for like help and stuff that we kind of got to talk on orientation week. So kind of just I feel ready to go.
Yeah, and I think too, I mean, your study habits also can tie into the networking. Because I know there was several of our classmates that did have experience in other areas. Like I think there was one. She had like it was either like a niece or something like that. There was a kid with special needs. So even though she wasn't a PT, she had experience dealing with special needs stuff. So when it comes to our pediatric stuff, where I'm just like, I don't understand any of this stuff. It's like very new to me. I was in the athletic world, so like anything that with developmental delays was very, very foreign. And so I could kind of lean on her a little bit, like, hey, could you explain what this really looks like? Because I don't know if you're like this, but like I have to actually see it. I'm a very, tactile type person. Like just reading about it doesn't make sense to me. So I usually have to like practice it or whatever. And so when we're going through that stuff, I was like, this doesn't really make sense. I don't understand how this test works or whatever, how the person will respond. And she was like, oh yeah, it's like this. And she could describe it and kind of show me and things like that. That was a big help. It was, same thing like in orthopedics. I had a bigger, better background in orthopedics coming from the athletic training world. And so some of my friends, we got together and I'm like, oh yeah, this is what it looks like. What this special test is, boom, 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 boom. And I could bang it out already because I had that from athletic training. And so that ties in a little bit of networking and study habits, and it really helped out.
Yeah, because I think too, everyone like, especially like most of the guys that are in school, or at least that I know, want to do sports. Some people like ortho, some people like pediatric, and most people are gonna like not necessarily like you got to still study the stuff you necessarily aren't as interested in, but if someone's more interested, they're obviously going to put more time and effort into it. So leaning on those people to kind of help if it's maybe a topic you're not as interested in, or if you're struggling in, and then I'm excited too to see how like the perspectives change as we go through rotations. Like everyone's still on the third year wants to do sports or still wants to do pediatrics or ortho. But I guess the last thing we talked about too is kind of like what where we want to go with like future episodes, especially as I'm like starting to learn like PT and starting to get some more learning. I know we're just kind of introing the podcast right now, but what you thinking?
Yeah, well, I mean, you're the one at PT school, so I'm anxious to kind of just see how the curriculum looks from your side, and then we can kind of talk about it as we go, because I mean, really at the heart of this is just trying to bridge that gap a little bit, because it is that when you read the textbooks, you're in the lectures and all that stuff, it's great, but really and truly, what PT school is about you passing your board exam. That's really what it's about, and so the challenge, and honestly, I actually got pretty frustrated with PT school when I was in there because, again, I'm very practically minded. So everything, the way I understand stuff, is only from a clinical perspective. And so I'm definitely anxious to see kind of what your curriculum looks like. If it was different than mine, I'm sure it's fairly similar or whatever. But then really just kind of talking through, yeah, what this looks like from theory, and what the practical application in the clinic looks like, and then really helping you and anybody else prioritize the information. That might be the biggest challenge. You come in as a first as a new grad clinician, you got a patient in front of you. What's a shoulder patient? So instead of like worrying about the shoulder and getting it better, you're just going through your head thinking of all the shoulder information that you had, you know? And it's like, okay, I've got this data dump of information. I really only need 10% of it, 15% of it to get the treatment moving. And so kind of practically, how do we take the theory from school, prioritize it, and then utilize it as a clinician? That's kind of my heart as we're in this.
Yeah, I think it would be super helpful, even if it's just like one person listening. If we could just have one person, whether it's a new grad or seasoned clinician, because even like I've been in the strength and conditioning field for like 3 years, I'm still like just always trying to learn. So hopefully it'll be good for at least one person, or we'll just have maybe me and you just watch it, and we could just
That's
talk
it. I mean,
every month together.
that's it. We'll just hang out, you know. It'll help you, I guess. It'll probably help me too, because I mean, no doubt. Like you said, going back and reviewing some of this stuff is a big help. You know, I mean, it's kind of scary to think of how much stuff you forget about when you're just rolling in the clinic. You know, so it's going to be a good review for me. But yeah, if nothing else, you'll get better, and maybe we'll
Take
have a
reviews
little bit
of
of
mine.
fun.
Well, podcast one done, and then
All right,
we'll,
man.
next
Awesome.
time we check
That was
in, I'll have
quick.
some classes underneath my belt, and we'll be able to talk about those.
All right. Sounds great.